Welcome to pay-to-play impressions for Smoke and Sacrifice. Well, let me show you the game, and I'm going to quickly explain why is it pay-to-play impressions. Well, I didn't finish the game, actually in very early stages of the game. So what happened? Well, I'm just not feeling like I want to complete the game. I'm not feeling like I really want to kind of go ahead and play it. And I'm just going to explain it very as I'm going to talk about the game, all this stuff. So the game is pretty much this. You are in an open world type of scenario. Here's your world. This is a map section that I managed to explore, things that I found. And as you walk around in this world, you will find enemies, you will find resources that you pick up. And so in that way, it's kind of similar to usual open world situation. Okay, so actually I was afraid that my lantern gave out, but it's actually what happened is that the fog that you just saw stops. There's like a day and night cycle where fog represents the night, and at night the enemies are much more powerful, it feels, at least to me. So, and you also the fog pretty much kills you if you don't have a source of light that will keep it away. So there's also like this kind of NPCs that you find that you can interact with. You can see that they have this kind of steampunkish feel to them in a way, I would say. So there, some of the resources I'm gathering, and as you gather resources, you're able to use this resource that you gathered for purposes of crafting. Right, so if I go into the crafting menu, there's different things that I can craft. There's different recipes. Some recipes you gain just because this NPCs will grant you some of this information. They do so every so often, tell you that. Most of the information was actually gained in the very beginning of the game. But other recipes you're gonna find on this kind of stuff. Like this is a recipe hide that maintains the recipe. There's also recipe stones like that where you can find the recipes. There's different ways of getting them off those things, to interpret them in a way, or just to kind of get them that the game tells you to do. So in that way, it's interesting because you're thinking of different ways different ingredients that you need to gather in order to improve things, and the ingredients are also in a way different. That some of them you just gather like that. Some of them you have to catch. Let's say let me catch this firefly, basically. It's called a lanternfly, and you can use that as one of the actually inputs for the crafting purposes. If you look at the crafting stuff, some of the stuff that you create is inputted this way. So now you can also get items by fighting the enemies. Let me show you some type of a fight. If I run into some enemies that I don't want to, that I would want to fight, there are also enemies that you will run into that you will find that you cannot really defeat. They're too strong for you. Here is the one that I can defeat. Now the controls in the game, I can use mouse and keyboard, or just mouse. I prefer to use a bit of both. It's actually quite easy to get away. In this case, it's using a keyboard. But I attack using a mouse and just usually move around using a mouse. There are downsides to moving around using a mouse because your clicks might get interpreted as an attack, and all your items have durability. All your weapons have durability, and so you might not want to hit a tree or something like that. But because you clicked there to move there, the character will hit a tree, and that's reduce the durability of an item. Now, I'm not a really big fan of the durability of some of these items. I think the durability is too low. It feels like I have to quite often recraft things, especially when it comes to lantern. The lanterns will, like this ones that you use to fight off the fog, so their durability doesn't seem to last long. And the problem is that your character, just because I have a whole bunch of them here, does not mean that the character replaces the lantern immediately in your hands in her hands, basically, as soon as your original one has died off, right? That doesn't happen here. You have to do it. So that's a bit annoying. The annoying thing is that sometimes when you say I do this that in order to get an item, right? But sometimes it's not very easy or visible behind the other objects. So you have to sometimes move around like this, the camera and stuff like that to get that. It's a minor annoyance, I would say. It's not really anything serious. So the story of the game is that you've been living in above world. This is under the subterranean world. You've been living above in the world above, which is frozen over, and there's only a section of the world that's actually not frozen. And the reason it's not frozen is because there's something called the sun tree, which is literally pretty much a bunch of electrical light bulbs that keep that area warm. Now the tribe you live with have a tradition of sacrificing the firstborn to the born child to the sun tree. And so you have to do that. Actually, in the beginning of the game, you do that. You bring your child to the temple. You give it over, sun tree. All that you have to do yourself. So it kind of makes sure that you, in a way, performing this action. It creates this. It makes you feel through the narrative. The idea is that you just did the whole sacrifice thing. Now, later, eventually, you do get a chance to basically. Not eventually, but basically it's part of the story that you do get a chance to enter, and I activated the lantern just right now. So you do get a chance to enter the temple again. You're not allowed to enter the temple usually because it's off limits to lay people, but you enter the temple again, and that's how you get to this subterranean world. And now you're exploring, trying to find your child, basically. So that's a story. Again, it's an interesting story. I'm not sure if there's a deeper meanings, themes there, but it's good enough for a story. I would say the overall game, in terms of quality, execution, everything is pretty good. Like I said, there's a crafting system, there's enemies. Enemies are different. Let's say here we have some wasps that in order to fight them, you do have to use different weapons. You cannot just fight them straight through. And that's actually comes to a number of other enemies that you will ways is that you will have to think about. Some enemies are not easily defeated, and so you will need to think, maybe I should use a different weapon, maybe I should do something else first to let's say use some kind of other weapon first and then follow up with a different one in order to defeat them. So you can see my lantern is now dying off, and like I mentioned, durability is a problem with for me at least, and then of course, character does not replace the lantern automatically. But what other thing I found is that if you run into this kind of enemies that I just showed you, well, it causes a problem for me, because let's say I've been walking around gathering resources for 15 minutes, exploring the map, opening up locations, right? And then I just run into that kind of enemy, I try to fight, it doesn't work out, and I'm unable to escape. Well, and I die. Well, the game will respawn me at these terminals. That's where we have to pull out another lantern now. But it will be the last safe time I did this at the terminal. You can only save it here. So all the resources, all the information that I opened up on the map will be lost. And then it's like, oh, but again, I have to do this all over again. But then to some people that might not be a problem, right? The game is not a fast game, right? It's a slow burn game. You can walk around here as much as you want, gather items, gather resources, craft, and get ready for your future adventures, right? Because you might not know exactly what is it that you need in your future adventures. By the way, some items that you'll find, like this items here, they actually degrade with time. Same as this. In order to stop the degrading, you have to transform them to the next stage, through crafting or by storing them in the wooden container. See, there you go. I just attacked something that I did not want to attack, but because I just kind of pressed with my mouse on it. So that's, again, like I said, in a way it's a bit of an annoyance. There's NPCs that will give you quests and items, and then in return will give you items or for the quests, or they'll give you recipes and such things, some information to follow things. It's in that way, I would say the game is pretty good in a lot of ways. That I would, but I've just found that I'm not really finding the game engaging for me. The setting itself is pretty cool. It's kind of interesting, underground world with a steampunkish atmosphere to it, or something along the lines like a Plague Doctor type of stuff. Also, it's interesting, right? But not interesting enough seems to be for me. But it might be something that you will like. So with that in mind, I would just conclude my pay-to-play impressions here, and If you like the video, please like, and if you didn't like it, don't like it, and please subscribe. Thank you for watching and for listening.